Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Elam Road podcast, where on tonight's show, I should say, we are running through the 3-1 defeat against Spurs at the weekend. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, we've got a full house today. Callum is back. Callum, mate, how are we? Long time no see.
Hello all, I'm back. Shame about the result, but hey ho, it's going to be an entertaining episode, so buckle in. I'm back all.
Buckle in. Craig, how are we?
Well, buckle in. I'm doing all right. I'm ready for some controversy. Let's see how we get on.
How are we, Dan?
All good. It's good to be back as well. I've missed the last couple, but I won't go anywhere now, I promise.
Good news, Dan. Good news.
Let's just crack on with tweet of the week. Few entries this week. Dan sent something in our group chat a bit earlier, which actually didn't come from Twitter, but it came from the BBC Sport website. This is Cliff, and as Craig said before we started recording, I can only presume that it's Cliff Crown. Cliff Crown on the BBC Sport website says, "We have to be more than good losers. We gave the ball away far too often. Assists by Ethan Pinnock and Yarmo for their first two goals. So there's already an error there because Janelt gave it away for the second. Madison offside for the third. I mean, it went to VAR, so I don't think he was offside. And then his last line, put Aya up front in Tony's place, and then we can benefit from long balls again." So, Aya up front, anyone having it?
Yeah, back it
No?
all the way.
Absolute stinker that is.
Do it, why not? It's like as bad as my take when I said, we should have Rico Henry at right back. But,
To be honest, Callum, I thought you might be going under the alias of Cliff when I saw that.
That is Callum, isn't it? Yeah.
It's very much a Callum take.
Secrets out, boys. Shush, that's
And then we got two more entries as well, just a kind of contrast of sentiment from different fan bases. Harry Brooks, who is a podcaster and he does coaching work as well, but I know that he's a Spurs fan. He said that's the best Spurs have played under Ange. So much variety in how they attack. The amount of times they cut through and in behind Brentford was incredible. People far too short-termism again from media and fans. Spurs building something special under Ange. So in terms of that, he's saying it was the best Spurs have ever played. Would have been difficult for any team to get a win, let alone Brentford. And then we got the Super Bees, second appearance of the season. He starts off strong. Complete fucking disgrace. Midfield embarrassing. Completely let us down. People want to slag off Norgard and Jensen walk into our midfield. I do agree with that last bit because we did sorely miss Norgard and Jensen. But Dan, was it a fucking disgrace on Saturday?
No, I think the issue is that in terms of the goals, we did play into their hands. The way we're trying to play now against these big teams is slightly different, notably different from previous years. We're trying to play out more. We're trying to play through the lines, but when it works, and it's really good. Like the first half against Man City, the first 20 minutes in particular was amazing. But when it's not working, we concede the ball far too close to our own goal, and we are much more open than we normally are against these sides. And I think that's a frustration, but I kind of understand why we're trying to do it, because equally we can't really go long to Brian up front and Carvalho up front. And we've got to find a different way to kind of feed them and create chances for ourselves. But to get points at these places in particular, we've got to be near enough perfect.
Yeah, I think I do sometimes. I agree with what the Super Bees is trying to say. It's just the way he says it sometimes. It's just a bit like he's definitely tweeted that about 10 minutes after full time when the emotions are like really, really high. But yeah, complete fucking disgrace. I think might be a touch too far. Go on, Craig.
But the second point of his tweet, ignoring the first part, he's absolutely right about Norgard and Janelt, though. Let's be honest. Jensen, Norgard and Jensen. And I was that Matt, Dan, and I were stood right next to each other. Well, right next to each other, more or less, as well. And we was talking about how we was trying to play out from the back and things like that, and how you have to be perfect and you got to be good enough to be able to do it. But it just didn't seem good enough on the weekend when we was trying to do it and kept getting caught out. But I felt like we really missed. I think we missed Jensen more than we missed Janelt this weekend. Bloody hell, why do I keep saying Janelt? We missed Jensen more than we missed Norgard. We missed Jensen more than we missed Norgard. And I felt like someone who is able to just be a bit composed on the ball and let the play happen, because he's that player that steps in, isn't he, as that extra defender, extra player to pick the ball up when we do like to play out. And when we lose that, it doesn't work the way that we want it to, like it did against City, like it has done against Southampton and Palace, and it did work at Liverpool as well. It worked up there as well. But when we lost him, we lost that person that will come in and collect the ball and then play it out. So I do agree that Jensen and Norgard walk back into the team every single time.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about Janelt at length. I think his downfall is when he does sometimes have the ball at his feet. But it's normally like we're normally annoyed at Janelt for maybe giving the ball away in attacking situations. Obviously, he's not really at fault for the first one. We're going to get into it, but it was strange to see, especially for the second one, him giving it away in a fairly innocuous place on the pitch. But it obviously led to their second goal. Callum, I'm going to come... Actually, just before we start, I've forgotten to plug everything. So please drop a comment down below, subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, and follow us on the socials at the Ealing Road on Twitter, at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. Callum, I'll come straight to you, mate, because we've not heard from you too much in the intro. Initial takeaways from the Spurs match.
Obviously, we got off to a very good start. Twice in a week now, we scored a very, very early goal. But afterwards, we just played right into Tottenham's hands, unfortunately. And yes, we didn't have any aerial presence up front, but to be honest with you, I feel, we should just be clearing our lines instead of pissing around with the ball at the back, because quite frankly, that is literally how we conceded 2 out of the 3 of the goals, really, to be honest. I think Carvalho had a good game, but, I think, he was being drawn into areas sometimes where he was losing the ball, maybe at times not strong enough. But I just think, and I said it to you, Mike, I think we needed to have a bit of aerial presence up front with Sharda coming on. And, he did have a good opportunity to score in the second half. So, if I'm looking to change things at the weekend, I personally think, although he had a poor game last Tuesday against Orient, I'd be looking to have Sharda out front in the striker's position, just to give us that little bit of aerial presence. And to throw it off, I think we should be looking for a striker in the market, in the free market. I said this to you as well, Mike. Adzi Martial is available. So there you go.
No, he's not. No,
he is available.
He's just signed for AEK Athens. Yeah.
Well, there you go. See, this is what I mean. Come on. I should be part of the recruitment team. He was available for what? Over a month. Honestly.
Listen, mate, there's a lot of people campaigning for the recruitment team to get fucked off the wall. So maybe you got a chance of actually going in.
I think I should personally. I've done my badges, so there you go. Look, listen, boys, if you're listening, get me in. I tell you, we could have had him through the door, but look, it was frustrating. Look, we had some really good moments in there. I thought we passed the ball around a few, in a few areas really, really well. Vicario as well. We pressed him quite well. Maybe not as much as I don't think we should have. We had a very good opportunity to score through Mbuemo when he lost the ball, when we pressed him and he gave the ball away. But, just lapses in concentration cost us. That's all I can say, really, to be honest with you, boys. Lapses of concentration.
I think it was, and you give me a nice segue into the next chat, because we want to talk about the lineup, Dan. I think it was a little bit maybe naive to go in at Tottenham, who I think have the highest turnovers high up the pitch in the league this year. We know the way that they like to press. And to not, I think there was definitely a discussion to be had whether it was going to be Fabio or Sharda that stepped into Wissa's role, because I feel like there's definitely benefits from both of them. I don't think Sharda can do the hold up play that Fabio actually, I thought, did quite well whenever he got the ball. But obviously he does have the aerial presence. So I think from the lineup, Dan, when it came out, I thought Wissa was going to be a big miss for sure. But also, what did you think when the lineup came out, just in terms of the names that you saw?
Well, the first thing I noticed was a lack of depth on the bench again. And we're only 5 games into the season and already we're looking quite thin on the ground again. And it's really difficult in a game when your only senior subs who have played a number of first team games are Ben Mee, Mads Roslev and Kevin Sharda, essentially. Apart from Sharda, there's really little we can really effectively do to change a game. And that's the first concern. I did think Carvalho would be on the bench, and I did think Sharda would start, especially against Spurs with their high line. Obviously, we know how quick Sharda is. I know Van der Ven's pretty quick as well, but he could have given him a run for his money. And like you say, if anyone is going to win aerial duels out of our current available attackers, it's him. And it does at least give us another option, even if we are trying to go down the route of being brave. But I mean, like we've covered, I think there's a fine line sometimes between being brave and just being a little bit naive and a bit stupid at times in terms of just repeatedly giving it away like we were, even if it is better to watch when it comes off.
Let's go through the goals, Craig. I'll come to you first with Brian because we've been giving him loads of love, and obviously 22 seconds, first team in Premier League history to score that fast back to back. Match of the day didn't even talk about it on about how good the finish actually was. So let's give the finish a bit of love, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a good friend who's a Tottenham fan, and as the first thing I said to him after the game. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The first thing he said to me after the game was, "What a goal that was!" By the way, what a goal that was from Mboma. Great work by KLP out on the wing. We've worked it out well. There was a bit of a heavy pass, but KLP recovers well, gets it onto his strong foot, and sends Porro a little bit out of his way, makes that space for him, and puts the ball in. And the peach of a ball for Brian, absolutely perfect. Who catches it first time on the volley and puts it in the top corner. Now, I don't know about you guys, but from the away end, I couldn't really tell how he caught it or how he scored it. All I just saw was the ball hitting the back of the net. And it wasn't until afterwards when I've seen the goal back, thinking, bloody hell, what a cracking finish that actually is.
Yeah, for sure. He's got that finish as well. I'm thinking of Swansea in the playoff semi-final. I'm thinking of Villa last year with his right foot, I want to say. But when the ball comes in at a kind of awkward height, for some reason, he's got 3 goals that are exactly like that. And I was just, honestly, match of the day, but it didn't even mention it. I was like, geez, that's got to be goal of the month.
This is why I don't watch match of the day. It's as simple as that, because they're all just incompetent. That is literally it. Like, it's ridiculous. Why, all right, you've got to, talk about, fair enough, Tottenham, yes, they did play a very good, game on Saturday, and they played us to a T. But you've also got to credit the opposition there when something like that, because I bet you at the end, at the end of the month, they'll put that in in contender for goal of the month. So why not mention it? It's just, as I say, this is why I don't bother watching match of the day, because they're all just anything.
Burks.
Okay, I think that's enough talk of match of the day, please, guys. Just for my liking. But let's move on to the next 20-30 minutes, because that's where it all started to fall apart. I don't think I've seen us under that kind of pressure this season so far. Obviously, Pinnock at fault for their first goal, for their equaliser. And I'll throw to you, Dan, on Pinnock's starts this season, because there is quite a bit of talk on it. I saw someone on Twitter say that we're asking him to play out from the back way more than he's used to, but obviously still give him time to adapt. But, I mean, I say he's had a poor start to the season, but bar the Haaland goal, and no one's been able to stop Haaland this year. He was flawless against City. I thought he was genuinely, like, it was another typical Ethan Pinnock performance. But on Saturday, it just looked a little bit nervous, and that first goal, he didn't give Janelt even an option to try and get it. I don't know if you thought Janelt could have done better in any way, or maybe it brought Maddison down, but I think even then you're kind of risking. It's probably not a red card, but you are maybe risking having the referee think about it. But what did you think of that first goal?
It was certainly a poor pass. I think it is more on Pinnock. I think the thing with Pinnock is we hold him to such high standards because he's been so good for us for so long. So perhaps, we're a bit harsh on him in some ways if he falls below that level, which obviously, I think at the weekend he did. I think even against City, we don't normally expect him to lose a one-on-one like that against someone. I know it was Haaland, who's probably an exception to anyone else he'll face this season, but these are the things over the years that, we're really comfortable with having Pinnock there, and we trust him so much. And I think it probably also hasn't helped that I think Collins has maybe outperformed him so far this season. I just think Collins has been so good. And even Van den Berg, when he's come in now, he looks really comfortable on the ball as well. Pinnock no longer looks like our outstanding centre-back out of the 3 of them. And I think maybe he's suffering a bit from that. But I certainly don't think he's been especially poor all season. I just think maybe he's fallen below his usual levels a little bit.
I think as well, because Van den Berg and Collins are so good on the ball, and that's not really Pinnock's game. Like when we describe Pinnock to other podcasts or to other people that ask about Pinnock, it's like, oh, he's a traditional get the ball out of the box, like he'll win every duel, he'll win every 50-50, like that kind of defender. You don't describe him as a kind of line breaking Rolls Royce. Well, sometimes Rolls Royce, but you don't describe him as that kind of ball playing centre half, to use Gary Neville's line. But yeah, no, I do get where you're coming from, Craig. I can see you wanting to come in, so I'll let you.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys picked up on it. There was something. It was definitely before the first goal as well. There was a bit of a scuffle in the area where they had a shot and we managed to get it clear, and Pinnock's then left in a heap inside the 6-yard box pretty early on in the game. And I felt like ever since that moment onwards, he looked uncomfortable. Like I was there with my sister, and she said he doesn't look like himself. He was hobbling around. He was a bit slow. He was moving not as freely as he normally would, and I think that played a very big impact on the game that he had on Saturday. So I want to say that this is one of the rare occasions where he doesn't have a good game, you know. But I think that there are factors to this one. I thought that he looked like he got hurt, and then he just never really recovered properly from it.
Let's hope not, because I think the last time I saw him get hurt on a football pitch was Wolves away, and then he was out injured for like 3 months. But yeah, the injuries. It was one where I saw the lineup and I was actually quite excited by it, because Yarmo was getting his first start. He's a different kind of player to both Janelt and Norgard. I thought he actually debuted quite well for either one of them if they were to be in. But KLP on the left, I think he was really good, had a really strong game. He's kind of making that left wing back position his own this season. It feels like it's difficult for whenever Rico Henry comes back in. Obviously, he'll slot straight back in terms of a 4, and then you'd imagine KLP will be squeezed out of the team. But even in terms of that Mbumo chance, the Mbumo opener, Callum, KLP plays a massive part in that. He gets away from Porro very easily. And it's just like, I do want to caveat all this talk with, you know, we're not going into meltdown mode, Callum, and I know you might want to, but we're not going into meltdown mode after a result against the Spurs team, who I know lost the North London derby, and there was a lot of noise about them. But I do think the kind of fallout of that loss was quite big, when Tottenham have actually been playing relatively well this season. And you'd argue that the fact that they only had 4 points on the board when they played us was probably an injustice to them, because they should have beat Newcastle, they should have beat Leicester. But just like in terms of what you felt when you came out of the ground, Callum, was it because I felt it was an opportunity missed in that second half, because I felt like they were there to be got at, and I don't think we did that as much as we could have. But in that first half, it was just the pressure just kind of told.
Yeah, I didn't come away too disappointed. I think, you know, we gave them a very good game personally. I mean, they had a lot of chances, particularly in the second half, where some good saves from Flecken were pulled off, and some good blocks from the back line. But otherwise, you know, we did create some very, very good opportunities to certainly draw level at one point, and you know, get ourselves back into the game. So the only thing I'm annoyed with is the caliber of the goals, of how we conceded, to be honest with you. You know, I was thinking earlier when we were talking about it, I actually compare, you know, how the first goal against Liverpool, you know, again, where we gave away a silly goal, really, where if we defended in a slightly different fashion, then we wouldn't have given that goal away. And also, the only thing I would say as well, I'm slightly frustrated with, is it's very brave what he's doing, but we almost got caught out again, similarly to Liverpool, where we brought everyone forward for a corner kick, and we left Son with, I can't remember who it was, but Son couldn't get to the ball in time. And I'm thinking, you know, you've got such a fast-paced team like Tottenham, and you know we're very brave. I like it, but you know, when in the first half and we're only 2-1 down, and you've taken everyone forward and left no one back, it's asking for problems. It is asking for problems. So we need to be a bit careful of that. But look, I didn't come away too disappointed. Tottenham is from the ground, I think it's a fantastic ground they've got there. You know, right through to the players, the caliber of players they had on the pitch. We gave them a very, very good crack. It's just, if we had those players like we touched upon earlier with Jensen and Norgard, it could have been a different story. But when you're missing 2 players of that caliber, you're on the back foot right from the start, unfortunately. And but we gave it a good crack. That's what I would say for Saturday.
I think Thomas Frank said the exact same thing in his press conference, and he said if we'd have had, I think we had 5 key players out or 5 starters out for the Spurs game, and if we'd have had those back, Spurs would still be favourites, but it might have been a different game. But you mentioned the chances, Callum. I think there's 3 that we should talk about. There's one just before half-time, Dan, and it was a carbon copy because I was just thinking about it a minute ago, but it's lost me now. I think it was Mbumo and Norgard, and Mbumo has a chance against Arsenal. And was it in the cup where Ramsdale gives it away and Mbumo goes to shoot, but he actually has a square pass onto Norgard in the middle? It could be Arsenal. Please let me know in the comments because it's escaping my mind now.
It was the cup.
He could have cut it straight back. Yeah, and he didn't. And he went for a shot, but it was at the end of the first half. Carvalho robs Vicario, and obviously in the heat of the moment, it's easy for us to say when we're looking back at it, but there is an open pass through to KLP, and then that's a tap in for him. But I don't know. Thoughts on that, Dan, on that chance?
I think there's so many players that would shoot in that situation. There are not, you've got to have a lot of awareness about you, and you've got to be, not selfish, quite generous as well in terms of just rolling it across to ensure we score the goal. Obviously, of course, that's the best thing to do. I think even with his shot, maybe he could have got it a bit further into the corner. So Vicario didn't save it. I think really that out of Mbumo's 3 big chances in the game, the one he scored was the most difficult. Mm-hmm. And the other 2, it's just unfortunate that we didn't manage to capitalize on them because, like I said, at these sort of stadiums, at these sort of places against these sort of teams, you've got to take those chances and when they come, and you've got to be clinical, especially if at the other end we're giving away what we're giving away. So it's unfortunate. Obviously, the right thing to do is play it across, but it all happens so quickly. He's a goal scorer. He wants to score as many goals as he can. I'm not surprised that he had a shot, but even that maybe could have been executed better.
Craig, what were your thoughts on the second half? Because we mentioned a couple of the chances. Obviously, Brian has that one-on-one with Vicario that when I watched it back, it probably wasn't as easy as it looked from the away end, because he's actually the angle is quite far away to the left. But it did become more end-to-end. I'll ask you, how do you think of the second half when overall Spurs had 3.5 XG and ours didn't get over 1? So the chances we had weren't great. But thoughts on the second half, because I thought it was really positive.
Yeah, what I will say is I thought we were very lucky to not be 3-1 or more down at half time. And then at the end of the game, I felt a bit robbed that we'd come away having lost 3-1 based on situations in which I don't know if we're gonna talk about. Callum, you mentioned a chance that Shada had as well in the second half where he won the header.
Yeah.
And I think he done everything right, and that is just a great save from Vicario. He's headed it straight down to get the zip off of the ground, and Vicario just gets all the way across the goal and makes a cracking save. Not many goalies would have reacted as quickly and as well as Vicario did, and on another day, that one's in the back of the net. Brian's chance, the angle was against him, but I think about the goal that he scored at Spurs 2 seasons ago, when Aaron Hickey puts him through. If you haven't forgotten, he's still a Brentford player. Put him through, and he puts it in the far corner as well. But again, Vicario does well, and it is a difficult chance. But what I'm happy about is the fact that we've come away from Liverpool, we've come away from City, and we've come away from Spurs talking about chances that we have created. Last season when we were sitting back against these teams in a different way in which we were this year, Callum said it's exciting, it's dangerous, but it's quite enjoyable to watch at times. But I'm just glad that we're able to sit here and have a conversation about the chances that we're creating at these big 6 plus Spurs games. You know what I mean? So yeah, we gave them opportunities to score, and their third goal comes from us trying to press them. Shada gets tackled on the edge of their box. Romero puts it through to Son, and next thing you know, it's in the back of the net and from Maddison. So, I mean, we'll beat teams. We will absolutely beat teams like that. We did it against Palace. We did it against Southampton. I mean, we even did it against Orient. We went 1-0 up very quickly in these two games. West Ham and Wolves coming up. If we play the same way, we'll create chances. We'll score goals against them as well. It will work against a lot of teams in the Premier League. It's just whether we can adapt the game to, suit us against these big 16 teams. But I'm not disappointed. I feel a bit hard done by, and overall, I'm not negative. I'm feeling pretty positive if we carry on playing the way we're going to play, the way we are playing.
I think as it became more end to end, and I said it on the Spurs podcast that I went on. You'd much rather go to a Spurs and lose in the way that we did than go there. Like we went to Liverpool and we didn't really give it a go in that second half, but we absolutely gave it a go against Spurs, and you were always going to be vulnerable to the counter attack. But even the fact that we're coming away from the second half and saying, "Oh, well, we easily on another day could have nicked a point if Sharda's chance goes in or Brian's chance goes in," it's definitely more positive. So like the meltdown that I saw from some people, I think was a little bit unwarranted, and just hoping that we can take it into the next game. And it is the home form. We've said it so many times. It's going to be so vital this season. But in terms of the away games, like we've not had the best fucking start, have we? In terms of the teams we've played and the teams, Man United coming up. But I do think we can have joy against Man United. But that's for the episode after West Ham. Callum, I'm going to come straight to you on the big incident from the game that's garnered the most attention. Vicario's handball outside the box. Talk to me, Callum.
Jeez, where the hell do I start with this one? I mean, I remember the footage being shown to me, on Saturday, and I was just gobsmacked. We had a American official that was they had moved over here and had done one season in the EFL and was then brought into the Premier League. I mean, not good enough. Not good enough, in my opinion. I've called for the best referees in the world to come over, but not that idiot. Send him back. Honestly, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'd love to know, like they've said, obviously, it's not a clear and obvious error, and it's not a specific goal scoring opportunity. Now, I'd say fair enough, maybe one handball outside the box, maybe. But number two, where he's completely changed the direction of where the ball is going, Damsgaard could have got to that. And you can see the angle. There is a shot from what was taken from a different camera angle. There is an open goal, regardless of whether there's two defenders behind. They're not on the goal line, are they? And, I just think it's ludicrous. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. I didn't listen to what Sky Sports had to say this morning, so I don't know if they talked about it. But
You did.
Thomas Frank was incredibly kind, in his interview. I'd be raging after that. I'd be bloody raging about it. But no, he's like, oh, well, these things happen, basically. Bollocks, basically, in my opinion. I think it's ridiculous, isn't it, boys? Like,
I don't think it's a red card, though, is it? It's not.
It is a red card. It is.
How is it a red card?
Twice, not once, twice, Mike. He has handled the ball twice in such a fashion. And obviously, Damsgaard's right on top of him. Like, fair enough, if someone's on the line, that's fair enough. But they're not. He's going to control that ball, and he's going to put that ball in the back of the net.
I'm not sure he is. I'm not sure he is. I'm not sure he's falling to Damsgaard.
I'm not giving this referee any exceptions, and the fact that it was laughable afterwards. Thomas Frank got bloody booked. I mean, flipping heck.
So did I as well. Yeah. Dan, is it not denial of a clear goal scoring opportunity?
I think that's the issue, right? It's definitely a handball outside the area. We all know that. It's definitely at least a yellow card and a free kick. I think the way the ball is flying, I'm not sure that is necessarily falling at Damsgaard. It's coming quite high. It's coming quite fast. There is a defender pretty right next to Damsgaard, basically. There's every chance it falls to the defender, or the defender gets first contact, wins a header or something like that. And, they get it away if you take the keeper out from that scenario. Of course, there's a chance the defender could mess it up, or Damsgaard could get a foot in. And obviously then you've got an open goal, but it's not clear and obviously it's not very clear and it's not very obvious that it's a
I'm
goal
telling
scoring
you now, we are going to relive this in the next few weeks or the next month or so. I'm putting it in my diary to remember this, because there is honestly there will be something similar happen later in the season, and they will give a red card. So none of this nonsense what the FA have said or the PFA or whatever they're called. It's a handball and it's a red card. Do your bloody job, and if not, bugger off. Simple as that.
It's definitely a handball, and the referee was close enough that he should have noticed it.
And
it's
on the edge. It's on the edge of the penalty area. The lino, he's got a bloody white line across the pitch that he can use.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The linesmen, they are incompetent. Exactly what I said in my tweet on Saturday. Incompetent. Like, what is the point? They shouldn't. Or even the fourth official. He's standing around with his bloody hands, he's flipping whatever he's doing. Honestly. I'm telling you now, we will relive this, and I will say, hands down, they should go back and they should have.
It will absolutely every single time go down to matter of opinion.
Exactly. I said this as well. It's ridiculous. If he gives a red card for that, the referee spots that. But I bet you right now, he'd point out, refuse to give it because he knew he would have a decision to make. Which is why I respect Michael Oliver yesterday, because he had some balls to send off Trossard. But clearly, whoever was in charge on Saturday didn't have them, so he can bugger off as well.
Here's a question. Here's a question on the flip. Here's a question on the flip side of it. Here's a question on the flip side of it then. Let's say the referee has a bit of bottle about him. Let's say he's got a bit of bottle. He spots, or the linesman spots that he's outside the box by a foot. Not on the line. Not on the line. He's a foot outside the area, 2 feet. Foot being generous, 2 feet. If he stops the game, gives the free kick, sends the goalkeeper off, does VAR intervene and overturn it?
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Which is why VAR now is, it's effectively refereeing the game. So, realistically, they should have gone back. I don't even think they spent very long looking at it, did they? I mean, honestly, this is what I was puzzled about. I was just like, there's no communication, there's nothing. And it's just, even a good old friend of ours, Jay, it's Jay Harris, isn't he? Who works for the Athletic. Even he said, I mean, and the fact that their manager laughed about it afterwards, it's just comical, isn't it, boys? It is comical. So
yeah, no, I agree. Without this turning into a VAR rant, well, I think it already has. But I think my main takeaway from it was just how close the referee was, and he's looking straight at it. It's just like, wow, how can you not see that? But anyway,
it's a shame it didn't happen to Forest, though, mind you, because you can imagine the riot they would have.
Dan, who stood out for you? I've picked out Sepp, who I thought was good again. Fabio, who I actually thought had a really good game, KLP and Yarmo. But who stood out? Who stood out for you, Dan?
Yeah, I do like Yarmo on the ball, and I do think on the ball I'd have him over Yanel, even when Norgard's fit. I think just if we're going to play the way we want to play, and we're going to persist with this, trying to play through the lines, I think when one of Jensen or Damsgaard isn't fit, I think he should be next in line, and I think he deserves it, and I think it will only do great things for his development. I think, Carvalho showed a few nice touches, getting out of tight areas. I think worked with KLP a few times as well to get round players. It's positive. Again, I'm not too sure of a fully fit team where Carvalho fits in still, because he's not an out-and-out centre forward. I don't really know. I still don't feel like we play the sort of player that we want him to be. Like who he is, I feel like we don't accommodate that in our formation normally. I think no one was super poor. I don't think. I thought it was a collective performance. We could have been better. We could have been worse. I think it was just one of them. I think on another day, it could perhaps have been different if we raised our level slightly.
Craig, I want to come to you on Kevin Schade, because I had a conversation with a mate that I was at the game with, and I understood why we went with Fabio Carvalho up top, because as I mentioned at the top of the show, I don't think Schade has the capabilities that Wissa has in terms of his hold-up play. Obviously, he's got his strengths in other areas, but Is Kevin Schade a winger or is he a striker, Craig? Can you just clear that up for me?
He's got to be a winger. He's definitely
he's a winger.
I think that Leyton Orient, he did so much better when he was coming into play rather than being in play and having to then be direct. The first goal, Fabio's goal, Schade picks the ball up out on that left wing and just drives at the players. And next thing you know, he's inside the penalty area somehow. He's such a direct player, but he needs the room to be able to chase after his second touch to then be able to get the ball in the box or him carry it in. And if he is too centre, he's too compact. You know, we said it before. I can't remember which game it was after. His first touch, unbelievable. His second touch, dreadful. So he spends most of the time chasing after his second touch. And if he's got too many players around him in the middle, he can't do that. So he has to be a wide player to be able to bring it down and just kick it 20 yards and chase it, because that's kind of the way that he is as a winger. But no, he's too quick, he's too direct, and he can't have too many bodies around him. So centre forward or striker just wouldn't work for him. He's got to be a wide player.
Yeah, it's a shame as well because Wissa's supposed to be out for 2 months, but as we know, that kind of timescale has to be taken with a little bit of pinch of salt. Yeah, so in terms of that front three that we've been raving about so much in the first few games, we don't know when we're going to see it again, which is difficult, especially against the bigger teams. But I do think even still, with the players that we have in terms of West Ham, and that's a good segue into West Ham, we still have enough to field a front three, hopefully, and go to a back four. Do we want to see a back four against West Ham, Callum?
Well, firstly, you've tempted fate there, Mike, because I can certainly see an injury happening this week. Just saying, with our record at the moment, we'll probably be in double figures by the end of the week.
Very miserable, aren't you, Callum? Fucking hell.
Honestly, honestly, he went down on Saturday, and I said straight away, I said, "Here you go, that's another one. Add that to the entry list for the next 3 or 4 months." But I would like to see. I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you listened to the Bowen on Saturday when they lost to Chelsea, and they just sound deflated. Moyes was on BN Sports as well. I listened to him on Saturday evening, what he was talking about, and he was incredibly frustrated with how West Ham set up and played against Chelsea, and they just didn't look like they were interested. They weren't pressing the ball. The middle of the park were giving Chelsea far too many opportunities. So I think absolutely we've got to go at West Ham, and the key areas are in the middle of that midfield. If they let us play around with it as well as as easy as what they were doing for Chelsea, that was the first goal through to Nicholas Jackson was such a simple pass from the middle of the midfield. And straight through to him, and he obviously scored from there. So yeah, I'd absolutely for it. I have full belief in our back line. I think we've got some incredible talent there, and certainly we should utilize 4 at the back. Absolutely, Mike. Absolutely, and attack them. Score an early goal. Their fans ain't gonna like it either. If we score an early goal, and they've got off to a pretty rocky start, they're going to get onto the new manager's back, and then gives us opportunities from there. So yeah, 4 at the back, absolutely.
They already have got onto the managers, but they booed them off against Chelsea. But
I think it's great. After the ground had gone after 45 minutes, it was only 2-0. I mean, I thought they're clearly incredibly fickle, weren't they? But
football fans are, mate. Football fans in general are, aren't they?
But you're right, though. West Ham have had a pretty poor start to the season. Lopetegui's a cautious manager. The West Ham fans, I don't really... They were angry at Moyes because they thought that they could be doing more, and then they brought in Lopetegui. He doesn't really have a attacking CV, but he does have a lot of success as a manager. So I wonder, Craig, I don't want this season to be like a carbon copy, because I remember last season we had less wins to start with, but... the performances were there, and then we had that result against Everton at home, and it's given me... I don't want it to be Everton at home kind of vibes going into it, but it would be awful if it was like good performances 4 in a row, and then we come against West Ham and we kind of just get undone a little bit. But how confident are you, Craig?
I don't think that's going to be the case. Based on the performances that we've actually put in and the fact that we've got the results at home, I don't think we're in the same situation as we were for that game against Everton. So as a, I hope we don't get any injuries, like Callum said. I hope we don't.
I've tempted fate now. I'm sorry, boys, but
so and we can go into next week with the strongest possible team that we can field. You know, I absolutely think we go back to a back four. I absolutely think we go back to a back four, and it goes into a bit of a segue into what we've got next as well. Is where the bloody hell is Rico Henry still? But I would be so tempted. I know you guys are going to say no, and there would be people watching this would say no. I would be so tempted to start Jayden Magoma at left back and go for a back four, because it feels like the shoe's on the other foot now. When people used to say this about us, but I know it was only Leyton Orient. But he was fantastic. I thought he was brilliant, and we did it with Dom Thompson. I don't know if you remember that Man City game that Dom Thompson had. One man of the match, and then he gets sent out on loan the next week. So I think take the risk, man. We got to take some kind of risk. If he's a young player and we're going to develop him, then use him. Don't just let him sit on the bench. And we don't have a fully fit left back at the moment, apart from him. And he's definitely good enough. You know, if he did it with Southampton, he can do it with us. And if he's got Ethan Pinnock, he's got Nathan Collins, he's got Chris Ayer, who I think should start right back ahead of Mads anyway. Or he's got Pinnock. If Pinnock's injured, then we've got centre backs of Vandenberg, Collins and Ayer. We've got so many defensive options. We've even got Ben Mee as a piece of experience, a backup. I know Callum don't like the idea of Magoma by the looks of it, but
I'm not even. If he's not getting on the bench on last Saturday, he is not getting on he is not starting against West Ham. To be honest with you, Craig, I hate to say it, I actually wasn't. If there was a player who didn't stand out for me last Tuesday, I actually thought it was him. I thought he may have been chucked in personally. He could have been chucked in, but I thought he struggled slightly off. Maybe he was off the pace a bit. I don't know. I mean, really, I think he needs to bulk up a bit. Personally, to be honest with you,
well,
I think he's.
You know that there's a different in physicality levels when you play against Premier League teams and League One, League Two teams. That it's going to be different. It's a totally different kettle of fish. And if he's a left back, then
he didn't shy down. I mean, there was a challenge in the second half which he didn't.
He didn't shy out of it.
He did not shy out of it. But if you're looking at bringing him, personally, for me, I don't want to ruin someone's confidence who's 19 years old or 18 years old, something like that. Now, of course, he's got a lot of potential there, and Brentford's recruitment policy is hardly ever wrong. So, but throwing him in against West Ham, not for me. Dominic Thompson was a one-off. I mean, before that, goodness me, his appearance, jeez, God, I don't want to talk about Dominic Thompson. So we're moving on.
I'll just finish us off, mate.
Go on.
I was just going to say, I think we've got to take a risk on him at some point for a left back if Rico has disappeared off the radar again. But Dan,
we paid a lot of money for him, so we should throw him in at some point. But it just does come back to where the hell is Rico Henry, because he was supposed to come back after the international break, and we've not seen him yet. But Dan, finish us off, mate. Thoughts going into West Ham? Who do you want to see? Give me a lineup if you can. I don't know.
Magoma at left back.
I wouldn't mind. I don't hate that, but I'm just not sure. Like, he never played much for Southampton, and that still is bugging me a bit. Why was he not playing much for Southampton, even in the Championship? I think there's got to be. He can't quite be ready yet. I don't know if it's worth taking that kind of risk. I think the potential bad things that could happen probably outweigh the good things that can happen with that risk at this stage. I wouldn't mind just like a back four of Vandenberg could play right back. You could have Collins, Pinnock, and Ayer at left back, and it's just big and beefy. And you can, we know how Ayer likes to drive forward from left back. I think Vandenberg, it'd be very harsh to drop him after the last couple of performances he's had, and I wouldn't mind that. It would cause us, you'd have thought it'd be quite solid across the back four with those four and a threat from set pieces as well. It also wouldn't surprise me if Yanelt slips in at left back if we stick with Yarmo and Norgard's back. Thomas Frank said Norgard's back, so we can hope. And then the other issue is obviously who starts a centre forward.
Yeah.
We might be looking at a false nine situation with Carvalho and Sharda on the left, which I'd probably prefer to Sharda down the middle. I'd like him to be in there somewhere, but probably on the left. Carvalho as a false nine, and then Brian on the right. I think it's going to be a bit awkward, whoever we play out front now for the next couple of months.
It's going to be interesting to see which options he goes for, because obviously if Sharda goes on the left, then KLP misses out, who's arguably been one of our best players this season. Who plays up front? Who goes left back? It's going to be interesting when the lineup comes out. But yeah, I think that'd be a good place to round things off, boys. I just want to point out that this season, the Elam Road podcast, we've got 3 episodes a week. The immediate reaction didn't come after Spurs. It did very briefly, but I ended up deleting that video just because I didn't realize how awful it was when I uploaded it, because there was so much background noise. There was my mate who was at the game with weighing in every answer. Some Spurs fans giving me shit as well. So I didn't upload that. But just to point out, the Euro podcast this season is bringing you immediate reaction, obviously the full-time show, and also a preview. And as well as that, I've just started my personal channel, which is doing a tactical breakdown of every game every week, plus just newsy bits here and there. So there's really no other podcast that's giving you this kind of Brentford content. So if you please could, just before we go, please tell your mates, subscribe, comment, follow on the socials. It's at the Ealing Road on Twitter, at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. My new one is at Mike Live in 5. So go and give that a sub, because the tactical debrief will be coming out on that channel in the next couple of days. But yeah, the pod, we're trying some new things this season, and we're hoping that the listenership that reflects that. So yeah, please do drop a comment down below. Chaps, it has been a pleasure as always. Callum, good to have you back, mate.
Thank you very much, all. I hope you enjoyed the entertainment. As I said, if you buckled in, I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for next week. I'm telling you, Sharda is going to score on Saturday, so we'll be thanking my analysis for that one. And Pinnock is also going to score on Saturday, so it's going to be a 2-1 Brentford win. We're going to be a very happy supporters next Saturday. So yeah, thank you very much. Very precise.